What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, the world's laziest grinder here, and we're back with episode 95, I believe, of the video game therapy series. Sorry about the last episode not having any video. Of course, I literally said something about like the software not screwing me over, and then of course it froze. My OBS just froze and didn't record any of the gameplay. Thankfully, the audio wasn't lost. I guess it wasn't a complete loss, but I guess for anybody who's deranged enough to actually want to watch the visuals, they missed out last episode. But I've solved the problem. I used to have two monitors. And this is actually just totally unrelated to the normal topics, but it's just I guess just context for this. I used to have two monitors, but it felt like it was the illusion of more productivity and the illusion of having double the. It's too distracting. I feel like it's too easy to want to have you want to have two monitors, so you want to be using them at the same time. So you can't it feels like a waste if there's just nothing on my second monitor and it's just on and bright, instead of me getting into a habit of turning it off or something. I say would rather have even though if I didn't even want to listen to music or have email up or something like that, I'd always have something open on the second monitor, and it was kind of pointless. But you can only look at one thing at once, and especially only focus on one thing, really truly focus on one thing at once. Just the lack of stimulation of noise. I got rid of the second monitor. And the bad news is that also doesn't allow for me to have the list of topics on a second monitor. So I either have to write them down physically or have them open on a second device. And I don't know if I'm recording properly yet. So most of the time I was just winging it. And sometimes I would set a timer, sometimes I wouldn't. And I would just try to hope that I hit my normal time. But my solution is I wanted a very small, a functionally unusable size monitor. But it would be big enough at least to have for me to validate that I'm recording and how long I'm recording, and have the little haikus I have for topics on the screen. So I ended up buying this $20, $25 7-inch tiny little monitor that's I think it's meant for a Raspberry Pi, which is a little microcomputer. But I am just using it as a little secondary monitor. You're not going to watch a video or anything on it, so it's not it doesn't feel bad if I'm not using it because it's too small. And also just too oddly shaped. I got one of the ones that's 400 pixels by 1280, so it's not the aspect ratio for actually viewing anything. So it's a good little thing for me to have, and it's exactly what I wanted to. So it's perfect. And it worked perfect with Arch Linux. I just had to edit a few little hyperland configs, and it works perfect out of the box. So I don't know. Apparently, it's also touchscreen, has a mic or a speaker. I don't think that's a mic. But I'm not going to bother. That just seems silly. I also got rid of an external speaker. I used to have a Bluetooth speaker that I would set up, and I'd have as a part of my computer setup. But I also got rid of that too, just because I think it's part of just trying to channel focus. I think the fewer things I have to be juggling, on my computer when I'm doing something, even if it is just playing a game, I think is the better. So that was really my rationale for that. But hopefully it will also be really easier now, and I'm not going to forget. I'm not going to not know if I'm recording or not or anything like that. So problem solved. Now on to the actual topics. Today I was talking with, I think, my mother actually, but because it feels even wrong, sometimes even heretical to say that the golden age is past us, right? It's you never know if you're living in the good old days until it's past you, and a lot of it is just the grass is greener, things were better, at this point or something. There's that attitude is so prevalent that it almost feels wrong for me to say that at some point something was better before, but I truly think the internet is past its maturation point, to the point where it's not good anymore. It's the golden age of the internet is over. So I guess instead of thinking just about mourning the demise of the internet, I was thinking, what is in its golden age right now? Like what's the big, what's big right now? What are we in the golden age of right now? And unfortunately, my answer to this is not really a fun one, but I think we're in the golden age of scams. I think like scamming, right? Like right now, scamming and being a scammer of any kind really is a very lucrative thing to be a part of, right? With AI scams, whatever scam you want, doesn't really matter. Like I think from 2018, maybe 2020, maybe a little later, maybe probably 2018 to be generous, until probably 2026 or so, 2028 maybe, I don't know, who knows, is there's just this perfect opportunity to scam people of any kind of scam. It could be a digital scam or an actual scam. I mean, literally anybody that, like, I went to a bar and there's people like that represent like DraftKings or Sportsbook or something. It's one of these gambling websites that are just harassing people in this restaurant, to sign up for their dumb site. Oh, the first bet's up to $1,000. Like obviously they know that like getting somebody hooked on gambling is going to make them way more money. So it's just, they're shameless in the sense that they will literally just be pestering people who, again, why are they being advertised to in this restaurant? That seems wrong on so many levels. Should anybody be subjected to this? But they are. And so I would even consider that like a kind of a form of scam. Now it's, again, they're representing like a legitimate legal company. So again, legally, I'm not saying that, I'm not calling foul play illegally here, but I think morally I'm calling foul play. It's a scam. It's what it is. And again, whether or not it's legal, I don't delineate. The law has no bearing on whether or not I think something is right or wrong or good or bad. Like if I listen to the law, then like I would have a very warped, in my view, I'd have very warped morals if the law determined what was good and what was bad. So I don't listen to that at all. I think it's stupid. I have my own litmus test, and yeah, sure, it's arbitrary and it's just individualistic to me, and is also imperfect, but that's fine. At least it's mine. It's not. I'm not. I don't claim like whatever the law is now to be more powerful than me. I don't think it should be. I think everyone should have their own ability to create their own moral systems and codes. And again, I would hope they are critical or at least intentional about what they consider to be moral and immoral. But certainly not legal standing doesn't win over morals for me at all. But anyway, I think we're in the golden age of scams. I think now, if you want to be a scammer, it's a perfect time to fuck people over for whatever it is that you need. I don't know. Yeah. So I guess I'm not gonna talk much more about that. But that was my thesis on what was big now. Let's see here. Yeah, I suppose this is I told this to my friend, so shout out Raptor Coolidge, but I did share this movie idea I had. And this is just totally off the cuff random. So I'm going to fumble around a bit with this, but it's this idea I had for a movie. And I'm not a fan of movies, so I'm not defending the use of this movie I'm not being serious really in saying there's a movie idea, but it is an idea for a movie that I thought was interesting. So the setting would be it would be like kind of a vague future, maybe like 5 years in the future, kind of like how a lot of those Black Mirror episodes are set up, where it's like everything's kind of seems modern and normal. Like we're all kind of using the same touchscreen iPhones. Like it's not like headset future. It's like, again, mostly kind of normal future, but then it's like a weird other thing, right? It's like, it's the future, except there's like these pods that we sleep in instead of beds or something. Or, the phones have some secret, arm in it or something. I don't know. It's the future really, except like plus, really. There's something additional that, is in the air, is in society, that is a part of the world. And the plus here in the movie is these like cryogenic, it's like, I don't know, maybe it'd be a startup or something, I guess, to really riff off Black Mirror. This could just be a Black Mirror episode, to be honest, not really a movie. But it would be like these cryogenic sleep chambers where you could go to sleep, and they could preserve your body and your brain and your awareness. They can kind of halt you, for 20, 30, 40 years or something like that. The time frames could be varied, but that's not really the point. They could halt you for a little bit, and then they could wake you up. So the use case would be like if you, I don't know, wanted to like freeze yourself and wait for, I don't know, someone for them to figure some kind of disease out or something like that, they would do that. But that's not the point. It's not to be like a medical saving thing. It's not a heartfelt movie. That's not the point of it. But the protagonist would be like, again, I kind of hate that I'm saying a normal guy here because it's like normal in what context really. But early mid 30s, wife and kids, kind of normal. Nothing. There's no problem. Like he has a working body, a working mind, a fine family. Like sure, there's like it's just very normal problems. Nothing that's like he's not disabled or anything like that. He's just kind of fighting this like this deep-seated malaise. So he's deeply unsatisfied for whatever reason. So he doesn't know why he is just not happy. He has kids. He should be happy by any material standards. And he's not really sure. Like it could be a woman too. I'm just saying. In my example here, it's going to be a dude. It doesn't matter. But he's deeply unsatisfied for, again, whatever reason. We don't really know why. And I don't think he knows why either. It's not like he's, fighting some childhood trauma. There's no real reason. They're not given a reason why he's unsatisfied. Anyway, so then he decides, he makes like this terribly difficult decision to freeze himself for, kind of a half generation, we'll say. So he's going to freeze himself for like 40 years such that like his wife is dying, I guess, when he comes out, or his kids are kind of grown up and he has some grandkids now. But that was his first freeze. And you can freeze multiple times. That's kind of the gimmick, is that you can freeze so that you can live, theoretically to be 200 or 300 years old or 500 years old or something like that. Again, the time frames aren't that important. It's just notice that we're skipping some time. Here we have like this one directional time travel. That's kind of the gimmick of this movie or Black Mirror episode or whatever. So he makes a difficult decision. Again, he couldn't really justify why he's doing this and why he's abandoning kind of these like young, years of his kids. Maybe he's got like a knee problem or something. I don't know. So then he comes out, and again, it's like the world's like a little bit advanced, but nothing like crazy. It's not like he doesn't come out and feel immediately at home. Like his kids are grown. He's got some grandkids. His wife is dying, and he hasn't aged a bit because he's been frozen. But maybe it's like advanced medicine fixes his little back problem. There's some good things, some bad things, a little war, maybe not, but nothing cataclysmic or anything that crazy. Just kind of maybe like more of the same, people still having problems, good things, bad things, still a very kind of a balanced-ish world. But he comes out of it, and he's like, he lives for, I think the gimmick with this cryogenic chamber is that you can go in, you sleep for 30, 40, 50 years, something like that. And you come out, you live for a few years, and then you go back in. It's kind of like a cyclical thing. I guess you wouldn't have to, you could stay out, but this guy's gimmick is that he goes in and out a couple times. So that was his first in and out transition there. The next one is like where he no longer has any, like in the first one, he would theoretically have some friends that were still around that were just older, that didn't freeze themselves or didn't get pulled from the lottery. Maybe it was a lottery system that pulled him, and he was either yes or no, and he just decided yes because he won that lottery and didn't want to it to go to waste or something like that. We could pick a reason why this person he chose to do that, whatever. In addition to, of course, his like deep-seated but unknown sadness or malaise or whatever. Then the second time he goes in and he comes out, none of his friends are his. There's no social, like, he doesn't have any friends or anybody. So he's just like, he's coming out to essentially a new world for him. Of course, he's like 35 or whatever, but it's like, it's kind of like we figured it out in this sense. Like there's like these perfect, they know the perfect concoction of drugs with no hangover. It's like maybe purely hedonistic fun party zone. Everyone's having partying all the time. There's UBI. There's no, like, if you want to do work, you can. There's this ultimate choice. It's kind of this like, it's basically gay space communism, more or less, is the way I look at this. That second coming out is that we figured everything out as a society. There's no problems really. It's not like it's like the Brave New World or anything like that, but it kind of in some ways maybe is. It is, maybe it's a little weird that like everybody's happy all the time. There's not, suffering without suffering, or maybe with much less suffering. Maybe they've mastered like exactly how much suffering the human needs to live a fulfilling life. So there's like, but it's all very calculated. So maybe that's like the whole gimmick of it. But either way, it's like it's perfect, really perfect as it could be, I suppose. In this sense. So it's, utopian. He's like coming out, he parties for like 5 years, a decade, he makes all these new friends, it's all fun. There's never like a dull moment in this thing. And then, he's really conflicted now because on one level, he is unsure whether he should just live out the rest of his days in this like kind of perfect society, or if he should go back to sleep and then, it could be even better later. Like, the question is, does he roll the dice again? Does he gamble? Again, with the allure of it being potentially even better than it is now, even though it is way better than it was in the beginning. Like, he's, I guess, by, in the short term and in a material sense, very much happier than he was in the movie started with his original wife and kids or whatever. Whether he should be or not, he kind of is on the outside. And sure, there might be some like somber-ish solo moments where he's kind of reflecting and like, this is, thinking about what he left behind kind of thing. I don't know, a la Interstellar. Like, there's those moments there where he's like, what if I didn't do this or whatever. So he's, he has some of those moments. It's not like he's totally unself-aware. The character presumably is not an idiot, and is able to comprehend, what he sacrificed to do this. So he makes a difficult decision to go back to sleep again. And of course, this is where the movie could take some real creative direction here. But of course, this time it's like he wakes up and it's like fucked. Like, maybe he wakes up early or after, like he wanted to sleep for 100 years. Maybe this time, maybe the other 2 times he just went to sleep for like 20 and then 40 years, something like that. But this time he like goes big and goes to 100. But he wakes up early because like the world's fucked up. Like, maybe it's not a nuclear Armageddon, but some kind of Armageddon, some kind of like disastrous. It's all a fucking mess. Everyone's dead. It's pain, suffering. It's like we're back to the Stone Age kind of thing. And he can't go back into the sleep thing. He doesn't know how to fix it. It's a broken thing or something. There could be some gimmick there, but ultimately he doesn't it's not like he tries to fix the thing to go back to sleep. He just kind of gives up. Okay, well, fuck, I have to live out the rest of my days in the society now, which, and there's some remnants of the old, like, gay-based communism era that he finds at some abandoned gas station or something like that. I don't know. There could be little scenes like that would, add to the potency of it or whatever. But the story is now he's stuck. He's stuck in this kind of post-apocalyptic, kind of objectively shittier at least, outside. And he's just got to figure out what to do and find ways to make his life meaningful. And it's not that he needs to he's starving and he's, he goes back to like foraging around. So but there's some foraging, and for the most part he's comfortable. But then he's really now so deeply faced with this internal malaise that he kind of ignored, or it was deep within him in the beginning of the movie, but he still had his wife and his kids to kind of distract him from why he was unsatisfied. But now he's just kind of alone and has no other way, nothing else to do really, but just to, to kind of, I guess, read some books, kind of think about what he has sacrificed and where he is now. But ultimately then just to accept that this is the rest of his life. And he has to figure out a way to make it meaningful or do something, or maybe makes a statue of his wife and kids, something like that. And it wouldn't be in the sense that this is like a transcendingly meaningful, like he then like figures anything out. I think the point of the movie is that he doesn't. And ultimately it was kind of the thing that really fucked him over was thinking that it could have gotten better. Like, what if, that kind of thinking. And it's not to say that what if is a bad way to look at it. Because, what ifs do, I think, result in a lot of objectively, I don't know, I guess we'll say good stuff that comes out of these what ifs. But generally, I think thinking what if we've solved all these problems, or, maybe in the beginning of the movie, one of his kids was like disabled or something like that. And that's why he went to sleep, because he wanted to see if he could fix the kid. I don't know. We could give him some other arc. But the point is, like, it's the what ifs that kind of drove him to now have to fight his own solitude and understand like why he did what he did. And not only like why he did what he did, but maybe he doesn't know, or he just did it out of impulse. But then he has to just kind of live with these, kind of stoically accept the result, which is what he's left with now. And that would be kind of the whole arc of the movie. But you could explore a lot more of, I don't know, you could make the guy a different character or something like that. But the point is, the point isn't that he has some like very obviously redeemable like goal, right? It's not where it's like, oh, he needs to do this to save his family. Like, so that's not the point of the movie. I think the main conflict of this movie, the point of it really for me as the visionary of this dumb movie, would be to explore his internal conflict and then and really, I guess, kind of just portray that it may not like resolve itself. Maybe there's not ever even a reason why he has an internal conflict. It's not like I think a lot of other movies make the mistake of creating internal conflict through something obvious, like, oh, he's internally conflicted because he like cheated on his wife, or he like murdered somebody, but he like was kind of justified in doing it, or maybe somebody murdered his wife and he's like seeking vengeance and he has this obvious. But I think the point of this is that there's nothing wrong with this guy. he used to have otherwise like, an enviable kind of fortunate position to be in by most standards. But he just, again, kind of maybe wins this lottery or is otherwise like tempted by this like what if gamble. And the point of the movie isn't necessarily say like don't ever gamble or don't ever live on the what if, but more or less that it's not always, it's, sometimes left things that leave you wondering what if, like what if this happened isn't necessarily worth it. You have to just kind of live with what you have and roll with the punches. And he has to roll with the punches at the end when he's has left everything behind and the world's fucked and he's just kind of foraging around and, materially he's worse off, but he's just got to, suck it up and do it. Maybe there's another, like flashback scenes or something like that, where his best friend that he left behind maybe kind of accepts the same fate, but it's in the world that he left behind, like with where the guy's wife and kids are alive and doing that. But it'd be ultimately like the same, kind of result. It wouldn't be any different necessarily. It's just, okay, well, this is what it is. And we have to just live the life as we see it now. Doesn't matter whether or not I traveled in the future, or whether I froze myself. It ultimately didn't fucking matter. I had to just live with what I had to do with the best I did, whatever, and figure it out now anyway. It's like, you don't ever avoid like, I have to figure it out and just kind of live with what I have, whether it is, good or bad. And of course in retrospect, maybe he wanted to stay on that hedonism planet, but there could even be a side arc where he did stay on the whole hedonism planet and that didn't even do anything. He was just as miserable as he was before. So there's a lot of different avenues you could take here, but this is just kind of my movie. Maybe it's been done before. I don't know. It doesn't sound very original, but I thought the idea of playing with a one-way time travel cryogenic chamber shtick like that as the shtick is just an interesting thing to play with. And then, but ultimately making it about this, somebody's internal struggles and kind of with the point being that it is what it is. And, I guess it's not that you should be complacent with where you are, but ultimately it's what ifs are sometimes just what ifs and not necessarily like a calling for something greater, right? What if my wife was hotter? It's like, it's probably not your, what if, who cares? Like, would it matter if your wife was hotter? Like, why is that so important to you to have a hotter wife? Is it, it wouldn't make a difference. You'd be asking something else. If your wife was hotter, it would be some other dumb thing that would take your attention. So maybe it's just that we're either too distracted or we don't have enough distractions, I guess, from what one of us or any of us might consider meaningful or good. So there's all kinds of different subtexts to analyze. I'm sure would be a very, stoic friendly movie or film or whatever, but just an idea, thought. Again, there's no rules with these, so that's why I want to share. So anyway, I will move on to something else here. Oh, I suppose this is a similar related concept. I guess it's kind of just applying, one way of looking, I guess, this whole situation is applying just Occam's razor to like, why am I sad? Or why do I have certain feelings? Or why does life suck or something like that? And sometimes it is like, it's kind of this existential, malaise, and there's not really a good reason for it sometimes. And it's not that like suffering doesn't always have a meaning. It's not always obvious, but sometimes I think it is obvious, and it is kind of Occam's razor. Like, well, you're suffering because, you're fat or something like that. I don't know. But sometimes it is, but I don't know. It's, I'm just considering on what extent is it always just applying Occam's razor to why you're sad or something like that? Because I think it's always like the first place where your mind jumps is if maybe someone's talking to you and explaining to you why their life sucks or why they feel like shit or why they something bad. I don't know. They're just kind of explaining why something sucks. And then you always have kind of this, okay, what's the most obvious answer first? Like, okay, most obviously, well, oh, you're poor. Maybe that's why you're sad, is because you're poor. If you weren't poor, you would be happy. And it's like, okay, sure, if like you're an idiot, that might be like the simplest answer you can come up with. But do I have to now like prove you wrong and show you that even if I was a millionaire, I wouldn't be any happier? That wasn't why. So like this Occam's razor answer that you gave me that, oh, you're poor, that's why you're sad, was wrong. So I had to prove you wrong and waste all my time making money just to show you that, or is it like never the Occam's razor? I feel like there's definitely there's some things I think we know very, I guess, bluntly, that it does have supreme influence on our well-being. Maybe namely like health, social cohesion. I'm not saying material stability, but like stability of some kind. It's like you're not literally starving or having a vitamin deficiency or with scurvy or something like that. So beyond that, you don't need like, everyone needs to make $75,000 a year. There's no like income threshold, I'm saying, for this amount of material comfort. It's largely dependent on the individual anyway, but even so, it's not, I think the answer of like, oh, you're poor, that's why you're sad. It's like, that isn't, sure, maybe like 1% of scenarios that might be the case, but I think it'd be very stupid to hastily just say, oh, this person's sad because they're poor. So I don't know. It's interesting thinking about the implications of applying kind of Occam's razor-esque framework to trying to address, I don't know, deep-seated malaise. Maybe it's just people aren't distracted enough, or they need some kind of meaningful work to work on. I think there's all kinds of these tenets of like what gives people any kind of meaning or satisfaction. And surely many of them are not material. So, having a craft of some kind, or some kind of work that is fulfilling, and work in some sense, I guess the early humans, this work was just survival. That was the work that gave them meaning. It was, I guess, this craftsmanship of being able to like pick up their, I don't know, all their livelihoods in their little bags and run around and like, kill pigs or whatever. Whenever they did that, that was kind of their craft. And that's what soaked up a lot of their time. And that's what gave them some kind of meaning in how to, and using their hands and their brains for something. But now, obviously, in this day and age, there's not a whole lot of use for being able to slay a boar, right? You're not really going to get paid as a boar hunter or something. And these, or like a tent maker. I guess you could be a tent maker, but that's not everyone. Clearly, nobody's out there living in the woods anymore. There's very, very few people that do that. So you have to find other ways to like fill that kind of, I don't know, craftsman void. And that's a tenet of material stability. Same with like the social cohesion part of it. So that's why I've spoken about the relevance and importance of, religion as a historical footnote, not in its like scientific function or if its logical explanations of the world, but simply in its way of these people get together, and whether they're getting together to celebrate a fake god with a boar on its head or sheep's feet or something like that, or they're going to dance and listen to the rain gods or something. But it doesn't matter. It's obviously all bullshit. But the point is that it brought people together to do something on a regular basis where they would see each other and they would grunt or talk or speak or dance or do whatever in some kind of social fact. That clearly has some evolutionary and psychological, physiological benefits, not even benefits, necessities for living at all. Like, I think without that, just strapping somebody in solitary confinement with a computer, with a command line or something they're going to go nuts. You're not going to get a healthy person with that no matter what. So there is some kind of social, social currency that these people need to exchange and to be a part of. That's obviously part of a life that will keep you alive, I suppose. Not even a life worth living or a good life per se, but a life that is living, a life that means being alive. I guess if that's not vague enough. But I don't know. I guess I'll move on to something else because I'm certainly off whatever topic I started on. So I don't know. Let's see. Let's go through my little list here. Yeah, I suppose this has also something to do with just it kind of relates to this movie, the movie idea that I had of, and I've been anti-travel before, and I was so vindicated to read Ralph Waldo Emerson's when he ripped on travel in one of his essays. I forgot what the essay was. Maybe it was the self-reliance part, but either way, he basically makes this argument that I've said before, is that there's a world kind of everywhere you look, and you don't need to go to Costa Rica to like feel free or to, like, I guess the silly way of putting it is that, your mind is plenty, there's plenty enough real estate in your mind to explore that you don't need to be flying to, I don't know, Indonesia to really be a whole human and be holistic and really find yourself. Like, it's not just, you can even just retreat into your mind, and there's plenty of untapped real estate there, and your mind is capable of this, of all that and more. And we surely leave a lot of that real estate untapped, I suppose, to put it in those terms. But I guess it's also the reason I say it's related to the movie is because like wherever that guy was is not, did it really add to that? I mean, sure, it added to the guy's story that he traveled through time, but would it have mattered? I don't think it did matter because I think there was a secondary plot of the best friend that lived out his life without freezing himself. He dealt with all the same problems. It was just manifested itself in different ways. Instead of being, warping ahead 50 years, it was just similar malaise and issues that the main character dealt with. And it wouldn't matter what time or what place or what setting or what culture that he was in. It was all kind of the same thing anyway. There was this amount of give and take, this good and bad that he dealt with. And, amount of, and all that I think too goes with like traveling. I don't think it might help, I guess, if you're just in a bubble and it's interesting to see stuff. And maybe if you want to have a bucket list where you go to some mountain somewhere or something, but I don't think it's necessarily like a sign of any kind of brilliance or, culture or knowledge, or certainly any kind of, there's no merits to necessarily being very well traveled. And I suppose you can say you try different food and have stuff to talk about. That's cool too, but that doesn't mean that you're like better than me because you've been to 80 countries, or that you are or that you're more cultured. I even made the argument last time that like that even is bad. I think if you go visit Thailand for a week, I think I still have a better impression of Taiwanese people and or not Taiwanese, but Thailand, having never been there. But the fact that you were there for a week and you bought margaritas, all of a sudden that you like know the culture of Thailand. Like, no, you fucking don't. If anything, you just ruined your, what otherwise would be a good, like, you're not experiencing their whole culture. You didn't grow up there. It's not your land. You don't, and you visited there, you fucked around, you bought stuff, and all of a sudden, like, you're this, like, you're cultured it's like, you're silly. You're an idiot. I would argue that you'd be better off having never visited there at all and having no conception of it and just reading a book about it or something like that. You're just giving yourself just enough to be on that like up curve of stupid, like the Dunning-Kruger curve. Like you're now at the peak of stupidity that you've given yourself enough information. Like, oh, I've been to Thailand. I know what it's like over there. It's like, no, you visited there for a week. It's not, you didn't live an entire lifetime there. You didn't. You lived your life, in Idaho or the Midwest or something like that. So it's not, you can't make the argument that it like makes you better or more cultured that you visited somewhere. So I just don't think that travels, people, you can do it. I'm not saying, but it doesn't make you better. It's not the goal of everyone's life. It's just silly that I think everyone's like, well, what would you do if you won the lottery? It's like, well, I would travel. And you go see what? Like you go see a mountain or a waterfall. Like it's never, the quote I like is like, it's never what you're looking at. It's like the thing it's you looking at the thing. It's never like the apple on the table that is like what you need to look at. So you don't need to look at new fruits. It's just how you're looking at the apple. You can look at the same apple on the fucking table and have wildly different perspectives, having never, whether or not the apple's in Thailand or Hawaii. And that's not the point to say, well, this is you're looking at a fucking apple. But if you're an ignorant, moronic piece of shit who doesn't know anything, it's not going to matter how many places you've been to. You're still an idiot. You're not going to win any. You're not getting more cultured or more knowledgeable or anything. You're not transcending yourself because you traveled. I think transcending yourself is independent of any location. So if you're really going to be like this cultured person who's changed, and that transformation can happen in a fucking basement. I think you get more, it'd be a more transformative experience and more culture enriching experience if you were in solitary confinement for a month. That would be, in my opinion, that would be more of a transformative experience for literally anybody is living a week in solitary confinement, versus going to a country, experiencing a different culture. America is so materialistic. It's silly to me to think that like traveling has this like brand of like, oh, you're smart and intelligent, and it's always the smart thing to do is to go travel and like blow your money in other countries. If you won the lottery, but I just don't think I think it's overrated, and it's not. I'm not saying you should never go anywhere ever. I've obviously done some traveling, but I just don't think that it should come with this like this air of nobility to it. It's like, oh, it's like you're smart or good or whatever just because you've traveled places. I think it means much less than people give it credit for. I think there's more to be said if you just like you immerse yourself. If you go live somewhere for a year, I think study abroad is probably a little more on the range of okay because you kind of immerse yourself a little bit, but like a week. Like a month, I would say like 5 years even would be like the minimum amount of time needed to like fully immerse yourself in something. Like, how many like frat kids have gone to, study abroad in, I don't know, Germany or something like that just to go drink beer. You're not a fucking German. You're an idiot. You just went over there to drink beer. You're not cultured. Sure, you learned a few German words, or you can speak German words. Read a history book or something like that. But I don't think that gives you any more credence to speak about how different cultures. I mean, it wouldn't. It just I don't know. I don't put much weight behind it. I don't think it's as transcendent or as I think again. I put this guy in solitary confinement for a week. I think that would transform this person's character much more than traveling somewhere. So there's a world everywhere you look, and it's not the apple that is limited. It's you looking at the apple. So it's in your fucking head. That's the problem, not me not having been anywhere. It's like you're given a brain. It's up to you if you want to travel in there or not. Anyway, I guess wanted to riff on traveling. I'm obviously not a big fan of traveling. Don't think it's that important. Yeah. I guess I talked a little about suffering. Having a meaning to suffering. Suffering could inherently have no meaning, or suffering. We don't really know. Man, I don't know. There's just too much. I guess I shouldn't even talk about this because I don't really have a thesis on suffering having a meaning. Does suffering need a meaning? Or is the lack of meaning alone enough for suffering? And how do we even define meaning in this context to make it meaningful enough to give suffering a meaning? Which is word soup for saying, is it possible for someone to be miserable for no reason? Right? Is it theoretically possible, or is there always some explanatory thing? And even if it is, there's some kind of we just love explaining stuff as humans, and I get that. Also, as someone that loves explaining, most of my ramblings here could be considered explanatory, banter or whatever. We love explaining stuff, and that's fine. But I think is there come a point where it's almost there's no explanation. And I would argue yes, obviously, but it's especially difficult to say where and what or how much is before we've crossed that threshold, I guess, of something, of specifically suffering having no meaning versus, I don't know, anything else that could have explanatory value. So physical phenomenon is obviously something, but is suffering just simply a physical phenomenon then? Could we alleviate that through proper explanatory, I don't know, physics or something? But I don't know. I don't even have anything to say on that. So I'm gonna move on. Not sure why I'm drinking coffee because it's gonna make me piss here. I gotta talk about this. This is not really related, but is interesting. Does reform really ever, I guess how true or how realistic is reform versus revolution? There's an argument to be made, and one that I'll maybe lean towards is that, at this current state of geo-sociopolitical, the state of the world, for lack of a better way to say it, is reform in some sense possible, or is revolution kind of destined? And there's not even to say there's no such thing as I guess a functional or a reform that worked. They're all just kind of controlled revolutions in some sense. Obviously some revolutions were obviously very sacrificial in nature, like wars specifically, or obviously revolutions that are very sacrificial. But I don't think there's there's always necessarily a way to calmly reform, only because reforms generally, I mean this more in a socio-political context of reforms generally are some kind of redistribution of assets or materials or money or power in some sense. And that's not doing that without some sacrifice or violence I don't know that it's necessarily possible in that sense. No one is willingly relinquishes power, right? At least on the scale of, I guess, international entities battling over such thing, or national entities battling over themselves. Oftentimes it ends up being a revolution. And then, once the tipping point gets so bad, it just tips back. We revolt. There's a new normal. And then again, power starts more even. And then it over time becomes less and less egalitarian as things go on until there's another revolution. So there's the argument to be made that it's a cyclical process of, kind of revolution, then we try to keep things in check for as long as we can, another revolution, and things just kind of keep going that way. There's not really a way to reform it or go back or let's make it more even now. It's no, I think generally kind of entropy even within a I guess a political, you know, uh, I guess policy or archetype or whatever increases over time. So things get more uneven and more chaotic. And then it's the revolution that kind of ends up fixing things or creating a new normal, whether or not it's a normal that everybody likes or not. It's a revolution. It's generally, I think, at the hands of people that are pissed off, or the angriest and most armed part of the population changes and revolts, and then we start over again. And then it takes a while before things get super uneven again, but it eventually happens. And then there's another revolution. So I guess my thesis in all this whole thing would be wondering whether or not that, I suppose, reformations, just in terms of like peaceful transfers of power, are possible. And I don't mean between like, oh, like we elected a Democrat this time, or we're going to elect a peaceful transfer of power to the Republican Party. It's like, I don't mean that. I mean like the whole scope of it, like the democracy crumbling in exchange for a dictatorship, right? That has never been a peaceful transition, right? No one's ever peacefully transferred from a dictatorship to a democracy. It's always been bloodshed. There's never been like a fall of an empire in like a peaceful way. It's like, it's not like, I think I'm talking about changing entire political systems. That has never been a peaceful thing. It's always been a revolution. And there's even been like a cyclical process where I think it's gone like what, democracy, dictatorship, communism, then back to democracy. It's something, it's obviously not that, but it's like some offshoot of that is kind of related, where there's some cycle between democracy, communism, or something. I don't know. There's probably not, communism is probably not the right word for it, but you know what I mean? Like, again, different types of governments changing hands has never been peaceful. There's always been kind of a revolution, I would say, versus these like peaceful reforms. So I don't know. They'd just be interesting to think about the implications of that in our modern sphere, right? I mean, a lot of people are preaching, I don't know, reforms of some kind, but is even worth it knowing that, I might be on the side of saying that they're kind of lobbying for reform is just more so just delaying a revolution. And since revolution is in some ways, I guess, some argument, I guess, would be that revolution is inevitable. So, advocating for reform is just, you're kind of on the side of, you're on the side of doing nothing almost. You're more conservative in that sense, which is ironic given that I think generally sides that have been more, I guess, reform based, generally are the more liberals, the classical, I suppose, liberals. I don't know what a liberal or conservative is anymore, to be honest, at least in America. I don't know. That's a fucking mess. But I think generally it's like the ones advocating for that kind of progress, ironically, are more conservative in that sense, in the sense that they're still kind of defending the system, so to speak. Whereas I think people that are like, well, it's going to blow up, we fuck it, more revolutionary, the reactionary kind of thing. They wouldn't call themselves conservatives either, but I guess the chaos monkeys or anarchists generally aren't. While they might have a lot of liberal values, they don't see the path to attaining those, those rights and those laws through like, oh, let's like vote on it or whatever. It's like, I think there are maybe like the voting doesn't fucking work. It's a waste of time. I'm not doing it. It's pointless. It's going to perpetrate this system that can and will and should collapse, like, inevitably. And I think that is more, I mean, a lot of people in my generation are more, I don't know, maybe very checked out of the whole thing. And it's not that they're conservatives. They want the system to continue existing the way it is. I think they just realize that, well, it's gonna fall. It's a matter of when and how and what. And I don't think like participating in it is going to do any difference, especially someone with no power, no money, no influence, with nothing. Like, what are you supposed to do on a global scale of like, managing the collapse of an empire? It's like that, nothing. Just leave it alone. Kind of let it go, just kind of make sure it doesn't fall on you, I guess. Don't put yourself in a precarious situation. Otherwise, just, I guess, kind of board up your windows and wait for the thing to fall, which some people might get mad at and say this, well, you should be like trying to help, but like make sure it falls in the right direction. Like the tree is falling. I'm just going to make sure it doesn't kill me, for one, and then maybe make sure it doesn't kill other people too. But I'm not going to like get under the tree to like hold it up. Like, the tree is falling, dog. You'd be a death sentence to get underneath the tree. Like, why would I don't want to associate it close with the system, because it's a falling tree. It's going to crush me. I'm going to die. So I'd be an idiot to do that. And I think that's I don't know, the metaphor that I think about in terms of our current political landscape, at least in some ways, which is not necessarily a popular opinion. I mean, maybe it's popular, but it doesn't seem popular at least. Let's see here. Yeah, I guess this is just a really dumb rant. So, baby shoes, like shoes for babies, like, I mean, like toddlers, like not even toddlers, like infants, like an infant baby, like 1 year and below. Why do they need shoes exactly? Like they can't walk, right? So it's not like you could use them for, like, I guess as a means of transportation. They're not walking. They're being carried everywhere. I suppose there's an argument that like you're protecting them from the elements if like they're cold feet or something like that, but then shouldn't you just put a blanket on them? I don't think like individual shoes is an efficient way of warming the baby's extremities. So why does it need shoes? And the strongest argument is like, well, they're cute. And I'm like, okay, well, they're cute baby shoes, but aren't the baby's feet cute enough? So are baby shoes just what, like, for babies that are cute but with ugly feet? You know, like why? I just don't, the conceptual idea behind why baby shoes are necessary, or like, it doesn't make any sense to me, because it's like, either, okay, fine, if it's cold, then get it a blanket and put a blanket on around the whole body and the feet to keep its extremities. Or it doesn't need individual shoes and socks. It seems silly, and it's not walking, so it's not doing anything there. And then if you're like, oh well, they're cute, then it's like, what is it, ugly feet? And like, why do we need to just sit here and just oogle over like the cuteness of a baby? I think the foremost idea should be just to keep the damn thing alive. Maybe, I don't know. The baby shoes to me as an abstraction make no sense. I don't know why you would need baby shoes unless, again, it was for a cute baby with ugly ass feet, you know, because again, baby feet in general, the size of it is what makes it cute. And I don't even know why like that factors in as a cute thing, you know. Like baby spiders aren't cute to me. I'd fucking kill them. You know, I guess baby humans, like, there's like is it cute just because it's like small and helpless? Is that why it's cute? And if so, why then is helplessness a facet of cuteness? Like, why is something that is helpless then cute? That seems, I mean, evolutionarily doesn't make much sense. If something is helpless, we would want to protect it, or we'd want to just kill it or dominate it or something like that. Or maybe that's why it is cute, is because like, oh my god, I could kill this thing so easily, and that's why it's adorable. But like, imagine using that as an abstraction for cute in other contexts. Like, oh, it's cute because I could kill it, or I could, you know, dominate it or something like that, which is a very Nietzsche way of looking at why cuteness as an idea exists, but is weird to think about, or is not really realistic. Like, as a way to, oh, I can just dominate this, because that's why I think it's cute. But baby shoes to me are stupid. I don't know why you'd buy baby shoes. So it's just get a blanket and put the thing in a blanket, or, you know, like, it's just like a waste of stuff that we don't need. Like, it's, I don't know. I saw, yeah, speaking of stuff that's waste, I was in a fucking Walmart, so I guess that's enough context. But it's like, it was a broom that would also vacuum. So you would vacuum it and broom it at the same time. What is the difference between that and a vacuum? Just a regular vacuum? What is brooming it do? What does sweeping it away do? Are you sweeping it away from the vacuum? Why would you need the the bristles on what is essentially just a vacuum? Wouldn't the efforts be better put towards making just a better vacuum? Like, you're going to have to sweep everything anyway. And if it's vacuuming it up, what are you sweeping it away for? Where are you sweeping it? If it's not, are you sweeping it into something then you'll then vacuum? Why not vacuum the whole thing? And I don't see why the broom and the vacuum need to be one thing. And I was like, why? How did this, not only did this go from like somebody's, you know, inevitably somebody's garage or a napkin, or maybe it's like Nabisco or some big ass company. It was like, oh, we need a new product. Let's think of like the dumbest thing someone will buy. How did it get out of like the napkin idea stage all the way through funding, through prototyping, through getting the damn thing printed in China and shipped over here and tested, to then now on shelves in Walmart being sold for $39? Why? What the fuck? Why? No, this should have been neutralized very, very early on. Someone should have gone, wait a minute, why on earth does this need a vacuum and a broom in one? What is the use case exactly for this? Where would a regular vacuum not be sufficient? Or a broom that you would then vacuum up later, but then it's a very expensive broom at that point. that also kind of has like a bad because there's no way it's a good broom and a good vacuum. Like there's it was, I mean, first of all, it's $40, so it's not that good anyway. But even so, like it's not it's a very expensive broom, but it's not a good vacuum. It'd be even I think even a $40 vacuum probably would be more useful than a broom that would sweep it away before you could suck. It just doesn't make any sense. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and I wasn't appalled that it existed because there's plenty of stupid things that exist, and I could shit on them, and yeah. It's just I'm just thinking about the whole life cycle process of this product. Somebody's job, probably like 10 people's jobs, revolved around getting this off of somebody's napkin or a boardroom something to then finally on the shelves in front of a consumer in a random part of the United States. How does it get all the way there before someone's like, maybe this is pointless and stupid? And maybe it's just testament to say that, okay, well, no one cares about the practicality of anything anymore. Like, why would you eat Twinkies when you can just eat salad or something like that? It's like, well, it's just calories. I'm not being a reductionist in that sense, but combining those two technologies specifically feels like such an obvious cash grab and a dumb idea on so many levels that it's just appalling to me that so much effort, I'm sure in some roundabout way, like my tax dollars or something, went into making what is so obviously a stupid and useless product, all the way from napkin to shelf. It was sobering for me again. I mean, it's not that I'm ever surprised necessarily as kind of this modern day cynics, so to speak, capital C, of course, but it's not, why? I mean, my God, what a stupid, I mean, I'd probably defend baby shoes over the broom vacuum hybrid. I mean, what a silly thing. It's not even cheaper than you can buy cheaper vacuums that still work. I mean, I don't know. It's just stupid. They're doing both of those things at like a quarter clip of efficiency, and it's just such a waste in that way. So I don't know. Stupid. Well, I guess I'll wrap it up there. That's probably good. And I can see my time now because I have my little mini monitor. So I'm liking this. This is good. So anyway, peace out, and I'll see you next time.